Laura Vitale. On this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, I'm going to show you how to make a tortellini pasta salad. Tortellini is one of my favorite pastas. They're like a little stuffed pasta, like so. They come in dried form, like this one here, or they come like in the freezer section. You can find them like fresh, but they're frozen. I personally like them in the dry form better. Tried multiple different kinds, but the Barilla are my absolute favorite. So those are the three cheese tortellini. So let's go over the ingredients and get started. You're gonna need some fresh baby arugula, washed and dried, garlic, little red onion, some prosciutto, some tomatoes. I'm using some beautiful heirloom baby tomatoes. These are the tortellini. I'm using the 3 cheese kind. You're gonna need some fresh mozzarella, some marinated artichokes, some marinated sun-dried tomatoes, olives, the prepared pesto, salt and pepper, red wine vinegar, and olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. So I'm gonna sound like a broken record when I say this, but I want you to use whatever you have left over, whatever you have on hand. Now I say that all the time when I'm making pasta salads or some like sandwiches, like in my chicken pita sandwich, I said the same thing. In my tuna sandwich, I said the same thing, because I really mean that. These are ingredients I have around, so that's what I'm putting in. But I guarantee it that next week, the recipe will be different. I might decide to put in feta, and I might decide to do a little Greek version of it. It just depends on what I have on hand, you know? The important thing is you've got tortellini. Once you've got tortellini, you're good. You can pretty much do whatever your heart desires. So, like I said, these are the 3 cheese tortellini. They're my favorite. I don't like the meat stuffed tortellini. The only meat stuffed tortellini I like are the cheese and prosciutto kind, also made by Barilla. I've tried so many different kinds, but I keep going back to 3 cheeses as my favorite. Okay, so I've got some water coming up to a boil here. That's gonna be for the tortellini. And as that comes up to a boil, I'm going to chop up some of my veggies. I'm gonna start with my tomatoes. I'm using these beautiful, colorful baby heirloom tomatoes. I mean, look at that, like a party in a bowl. Because that's just what I happened to find. I found those and I've decided that I wanted to use them. They were too pretty to pass up, and they're really sweet. I already ate a handful of them. So I'm just cutting them into quarters. You can cut them in half, you can use regular tomatoes. It's up to you, really. So I'm just gonna chop these up, and the water should be just about up to a boil once I'm done with the tomatoes, and then I'll add my tortellini to it. Okay, I've added my tortellini to the boiling water. Just finishing up with my tomatoes. Now I want to address a question I get asked all the time, and I've answered this on Laura's Topics. So if you haven't seen that video, you go check it out. It's on my other channel. But people are always asking me, what do you do with all the food that you cook? This is a fantastic example. You know, there's only 2 people in my family, in my household. It's just my husband and I. I don't have kids, but I hardly ever cook for 2 people. Unless, I mean, when it comes to dishes like this, I always make a full batch because they are amazing for leftovers. If I were to cut the recipe in half and just make enough for dinner, just for him and I, which I could, you know, I'd be missing out. If I'm doing the chopping, if I'm doing all the prep work, why not make a full batch and have it for lunch tomorrow? And then have it for lunch for the day after. So that way I'm having a really yummy, delicious lunch, and I'm enjoying it. And I don't waste anything. I love making food like this. So, you know, right now it's time for everybody to go back to school. You know, parents are working. I feel like everybody's on the go. So it's recipes like this that really come in handy. And you don't have to just eat this for lunch. If you don't have time for dinner tomorrow, this is where leftovers come in handy. So make a whole batch. I'm just gonna cut my tomatoes. I'm gonna cut my mozzarella. I'm gonna cut my sun-dried tomatoes. Just pretty much these things over here. I'm gonna chop them up. And then I'll meet you back here when they're all done. I've chopped up pretty much all my veggies, including my prosciutto. I just cut it into little bite-sized pieces. I've drained my tortellini, and I just kind of rinsed it under cold water just to bring down the temperature quite a bit. It's still a little bit warm, but I don't want them to be so hot that it'll melt the cheese, and then I don't want that. So let's get going to making the dressing, which I really love. In this measuring cup, what I've got here is some pesto. You can use store-bought or homemade. It's totally up to you. This is going to provide tons of flavor. I'm going to thin it out a bit with some red wine vinegar, nice and tangy. It's nice balance. Remember, food is, when it comes to food, balance is key. And then I'm just going to drizzle in a little bit more olive oil. That's about it, really. It's really simple, it's really quick, it's really yummy, and it's got a little bit more character. You know, especially for things like lunch and stuff like that, I'm not a big fan of mayo-based stuff, only because, you know, you can't keep it as well. You can't keep it at room temperature. So, to my big pot here, to my big bowl, I'm gonna add in my tortellini with all my veggies. I'm gonna drizzle over my dressing, and you could always put a little bit more oil and vinegar directly over the bowl if you feel like it's necessary. I don't think so right now, but let me give this some fresh cracked pepper, some salt, and I'm going to gently give this a nice big stir to get everything well combined. That looks really awesome. I'm going to give this a taste. It's going to be delicious now, but I'm going to guarantee it if you cover this like I'm going to. Pop it in the fridge for a couple of hours and let everything kind of cool, and everything is going to mix together. All the flavors are going to mix together. The pesto is going to get absorbed by the tortellini. It is going to be divine, but I wanted to give this a taste now. I do want to find a piece of prosciutto. There we go. Oh my goodness. That is so good. I can't even describe it. I have the written recipe on laureninthekitchen.com. If you are interested in making this for back to school lunch or any time of day, this will pretty much hit the spot. I hope you enjoyed spending time with me. Just my husband and I tonight, so I can go back in for seconds. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.